Welcome to MamaFuel, the podcast that fuels every mama's heart, soul, mind, and body, and hopefully sparks a few dreams along the way. I'm Ann Ferguson, Chief Nurturer and Mama Mentor at the Centered Mama Project, and your host for this podcast. I'll be sharing real, raw, and often funny conversations with beautiful mamas from around the world to remind you that you're not alone and that you're doing amazingly on this wild journey of shepherding small humans as they make their way on our beautiful planet. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to today's episode of MamaFuel. It is Ann Ferguson, your host, and I am so delighted to be in your earbuds or your speakers today because it's been a wild ride and it's been a while. I've missed you, and I hope that you've missed MamaFuel, the podcast, as well, but I am back in some new digs, and that is part of why you haven't heard from me in a while. In fact, lots has been happening here. In our house, we have two very quickly approaching preteen girls, and until not so long ago, they were sharing a space. Yep, a bedroom, a bathroom, all the things. And in my fantasy world, that meant that they would be best friends and get along super well all the time. Reality, however, didn't quite match up to fantasy. And the last few weeks have meant that we have been moving our oldest daughter into her own room, thereby obviously granting her little sister her own room as well. And that has involved, as ever, way more than I expected. So while the podcast has been paused, what has been happening here on the home front has been a massive move, which maybe some of you have experienced and have some tips to share. And if you do, I would love to hear those over at thecenteredmamaproject.com/Facebook. That's how you get there, to the Facebook group, to the virtual village. But it's meant a lot of changes, including a change in my office. And that is part of the reason you haven't heard from me in a while, because my oldest daughter moved into what was my office that had been totally set up and I could do podcasts and interviews in there. And I moved into my basement hideaway, which is something I love. However, you might still be able to hear it a little bit. The sound is not great down here. In fact, as I'm recording, I have a whole bunch of cushions piled on my desk, a blanket on top of that, and I'm holding a cushion in front of my face behind the microphone in hopes that it will couch somehow the sound waves so that you won't hear as much echo. I'm not really sure it's working, but I'm going to go with it anyway because a lot of you have been writing to me and saying, hey, where's the podcast? We miss hearing from you and we miss hearing from your amazing guests. So I wanted to come in and say, hi, still here and just trying to figure out all of the technical aspects. I think I found a solution yesterday, but it involves drilling in a concrete ceiling and hanging something from the ceiling that I'll tell you about if it works. And if it doesn't, I'm not going to tell you because it might be a little silly. So what has also been going on, in addition to moving into this new space, which I really resisted because I really wanted to make sure that I was keeping myself and my business and everything that I work on and am passionate about in the center of my life. And I didn't like this sense that I was somehow coming into the underground of the house. I was somehow losing visibility. I was somehow losing light. And these are all stories that I was telling myself, but I hear with the mamas that I work with around the world, we all tell ourselves stories about all the things all the time, right? And I work on this stuff and I read the books and I have a coach and I do all the things and still was having this really big resistance to coming down into what has turned out to be probably the best of the three offices I've had in the house. That makes it sound like we live in a mansion. We don't. I had a tiny little closet space, which is probably the best for recording podcasts had I actually soundproofed it. And then I had a huge bedroom upstairs, which is now my daughter's. Huge. Not by North American standards, but by European standards, a good-sized bedroom. And now I'm in the basement. And actually, I love my office down here. It's just the acoustics that are a bit poopy. So yeah, it's all been going on. And what's also been going on is that in that time, I finally created what I had been talking about a few times, even on the podcast. You'll have heard me talk about the MamaFuel Sisterhood, and I was creating that and welcomed in an exquisite group of mamas who joined as the founders of the MamaFuel Sisterhood. And together we are shaping what is going to be the future form and content of the sisterhood for anyone who's interested in joining when it opens up again in January. So there's been a lot going on here, from furniture assembly to painting to furniture assembly to shopping for the odds and ends to make our little girls' rooms look like young ladies' rooms. It's been a wild ride, plus school holidays in there and the bout of the flu, the proper actual flu that lasted 10 days with high temperatures. It's been full on. And one of the things that has really sustained us as we've been going through this is the connections that we have with other people. So with our amazing neighbors, with friends that I have here locally in Geneva, but also, and I would say even more so in this case, because there's been a lot of home time, has been the support and love of communities that I'm part of online. I have a working group, a mastermind that I am part of. I have spiritual groups that I'm part of where I am sitting in circle with people that I really trust and love. And those kinds of support where you can really show up in all of the things without feeling any, I was going to say guilt, but really without dragging too many of your stories. We all have them, but without dragging too many of your stories into circle with other women, I find particularly, but I'm starting to step into more circles that have women and men in them. It has been invaluable, especially at a time when there's been, as I said, a lot of home time, either because we've been in DIY mode or because one of my daughters was really sick or we had guests or there's other stuff going on. All of the things make it that I really have had a deep appreciation for the bonds of sisterhood and the support that has been available online. That said, I also recognize that many of us have this love-hate tension and relationship with social media and with joining communities in person and online. And there are benefits and drawbacks to everything, as reminded me my coach, Leslie Potter, last week when she was staying with us for 10 days. And one of the benefits of having online community is that you show up when you have time, and when you need to leave, you go. And there's no arrangement of anything. There's no setting up of an appointment, having to find the parking, doing all of the stuff. But it also means that there isn't any extra effort required, and it somehow affects our offline, actual, real, in-person life, because when you do need to make appointments and you do need to go to a place and you have got to negotiate traffic and you do need to find a parking spot and you've got to drop your kids and all these physical logistics, all of these inconveniences that you are required to face into when you're physically meeting people in person, those become a little bit more noticeable when you're used to meeting people online. And since for the past few weeks, I've been spending a lot of time online because of what's been going on in our family and the move, etc., I really notice how much effort is required. And it's not massive, but that there is an effort required to actually meet people in person. And this is becoming a wave that we're all, many of us, in fact, many women particularly I'm seeing, are recognizing how much we crave physical contact, how much we crave being in the same room together, how much we want to hug each other and just look each other in the eye and listen to the meter of another human breathing. Because you can do that when you're listening to a podcast, but the other human doesn't hear you back. And it is a monologue, or as often is the case with me, a dialogue with some amazing people. It's entertaining, but it is not a two-way exchange. So part of my promise to myself, even though I love connecting with you here on the podcast, and I love connecting with mamas around the world in the MamaFuel Sisterhood, on the Virtual Village private Facebook group, and in other ways that I work with moms, one of my commitments to myself is to become more present offline. So to just spend less time online, to spend less time kind of hiding in a way in this parallel universe where incredible real people hang out, but making the time and effort to do it in person and live as well. I'd be curious to know if that's something that resonates with you. Maybe it's an experience that you've had. Maybe you've realized that you spend a huge amount of time down the rabbit hole of Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Maybe you're looking for work and LinkedIn is your lifeline. Maybe you aren't into any of it. You don't listen, or I was going to say you don't listen to podcasts, but then you wouldn't be listening to this, would you? But maybe you don't belong on Facebook, maybe to Facebook. Maybe you never go on there. Maybe you don't have a social media account. God bless you if you don't, because you have so much time in your life that isn't taken up with mindlessness. Or maybe it is taken up with mindlessness, and it's mindless busy work in your home, because that's something that we all do as well. But I invite you to really think about this and to think about what community looks like in your life and to think about what sisterhood looks like in your life. Because the more time I spend in circle with groups of women, but particularly with the MamaFuel sisterhood, the more I recognize that the absolute biggest benefit of being in circle with other women, other people, is the fact of being seen and heard without judgment, without anyone trying to fix us or fix the situation, but really being held and seen and witnessed. That's what we all want. We all want to belong. Every single one of the books that Brené Brown writes is all about shame and vulnerability and belonging, not fitting in. So my question or my reflection today is really around that, is around how are we connecting? How are we finding places where we fit in? How are we finding places where we really belong? Because places where we fit in are the places where we feel we have to change to be accepted. And the places we belong are the places we get to, and people just get us from the very first conversation. That is what's happening in the MamaFuel sisterhood. That is what happens with some of these incredible women that I have had the pleasure and blessing of meeting offline, and men as well. Gosh, I've met some incredible men this year and women. And it has really shaken up my parameters for what feels good and has sharpened them for me. Not sharp in the sense of making them aggressive, but sharp in the sense of things being so much clearer. How I want to be showing up with other people in relationship and how I expect other people to show up in relationship with me. And not expectation from a sense of I have expectations of other people, and if they don't live up to them, then there's any negative consequence. It's just, okay, this is my standard. This is what I would like. This is how I want to be heard and seen and received. And can you do that? And I will do the same for you. And if that doesn't work, then that's okay. Blessings on your journey. And I'm going to find people who we connect with better. And those people may be the most different people in the world to me, with the most different backgrounds, belief system, anything. But as long as there is an openness of spirit and heart, then that true connection, that true belonging can happen. So as I sit on this pensive Monday and reflect on all of this, I invite you to do the same and see, where are you connecting in real life? Where are you maybe using social media as a place to hide out? Or conversely, where could you be using the technology that's available to us today to find support when you need it at 3 a.m. when the baby's crying, or for the third day in a row where somebody's homesick, or you're single momming and it just feels like a lot, or you got upset with your kids and you feel guilty. Whatever the thing is, how could you find your tribes? How could you find the places where you truly belong and you truly connect? And that might be a discussion forum. It might be a group, a free group. It might be a membership like the Centered Mamas MamaFuel sisterhood. I don't know. But there are definitely options that didn't used to exist before, while at the same time we need to make a conscious effort to connect in the ways that were maybe effortless before and now require some consciousness. It's all good. None of it is bad. But we definitely have beautiful opportunities now to connect in ways that we didn't used to. This is episode 30. I can't believe it has gone so fast. I have a juicy, juicy interview in the can for you. However, it sounded like I was talking to you from the bottom of a wet drain. So I'm excited to re-record that as soon as I sort the acoustics in my little basement hideaway, because much as I can record this solo show with a fuchsia cushion in front of my face and behind the microphone, it doesn't make for a great video. And part of my interview process is to actually talk to people where I can see them and they can see me, and we record a video. So unless we want it to be a video that's recorded with cushion face, I'm going to leave that until the acoustics are sorted, which I hope will be this week, in the next few days. And I'll be very excited to start streaming every week again on a Monday, a new episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. I am so grateful to you for listening. And if you love this podcast and have loved any of the episodes, I would be delighted if you would share and if you would go and leave a 5-star review or any review over on iTunes. We have crested 2,000 downloads of this podcast, and I am beyond delighted, so grateful that you are with me on this journey, and I cannot wait to take us even further, because there's so much goodness that I want to share as soon as I can figure out how to do it without being cushion face and the bottom of a drain here in my amazing, beautiful basement hideaway that I love so much. Wishing you a gorgeous week. Can't wait to be back next week. Sending you so much love. And if you haven't, come over to the Facebook group, which you can either find on Facebook by searching Centered Mamas Virtual Village, or you can go to the centeredmamaproject.com/Facebook and you can join us there. If you are interested, if you know already that you're interested in joining the MamaFuel Sisterhood in January, drop me an email. It's probably the best way to get to me. And the email is Anne, ANNE, at MamaFuel, MAMAFUEL.me, and I will pop your name on the waiting list. I would love to have you. It is the most exquisite gathering of beautiful mamas from around the world, and I'm really curious and excited to see who's going to join us when we open up the doors again in January. Wishing you a gorgeous week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
That's it for today's episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. Thanks for listening. There's a lot more conversation, sharing, and real mama talk happening in our private Facebook group. To join us, go to www.thecenteredmamaproject.com/Facebook and make sure you say hi when you get there. If you like this episode, or if you know a mama who could use a little mama fuel, I'd love you to share this episode and to rate and leave a review. Every comment helps, and it is always a delight to hear from you. Thanks, and bye for now.